Hi everyone, welcome to the second half of our first philosophy discussion, which was delving into the question of are we truly free to love in society? And we were discussing different theorists. So I'll just give you a quick refresh. So we were talking about unconditional love. We were talking about how society constrains us in our ability to actually truly love. And these are topics that we're going to come about and discuss in many different ways as we go through this. All right, so let's take a look at the first question. The first question says, in terms of views on society structure, who do you agree with more, Foucault or Durkheim? And just to refresh you, Foucault was the philosopher that talked about the panopticon and how in our lives we are heavily surveilled by society, and that general feeling of being surveilled makes us surveil ourselves, and it also makes us feel extremely restrained in our lives. And Durkheim was the philosopher, the theorist that talked a lot about labor and society, and how the different types of suicide, like such as anomic suicide, fatalistic suicide, and the other types, affected our feelings in relation to society. And anomic suicide being that feeling of separation from social norms and actually feeling like we're not, that society is at such a different state than we are, and that we're not connected to society, whereas the opposite of that would be feeling that you're a part of society. You're feeling that you're part of a subgroup, such as like a church or a club or somewhere where you belong, whereas normlessness and anomic suicide would be the opposite. And fatalistic suicide, on the other hand, was the one where you would feel that you're almost at a dead end with how much society is controlling your life. And in terms of looking at the results, what I'm seeing here is that in answering the question as to which one you guys agreed with, we have 3 people. So this one didn't get a lot of responses. You guys are very shy. And I really encourage you to do more of these polls so that we can see higher numbers and also see what more people think. But a lot of people said both. So kind of like how you can kind of play off one theorist to another, like relate one to another. And then another group of you actually, quite a lot of you said that you don't agree with either of them. So that's rather interesting. And we also have one person who agreed with Durkheim. All right. So I'm just going to read to you the next question that we had and see what the results were. And it says, do you agree with Foucault's description of society as being like Jeremy Bentham's panopticon? If society is not like Bentham's panopticon, then how is it in your mind? And this one had a range of answers. And as we discussed, we would be sharing the actual answers, unless you guys specified in your answer that you didn't want it to be shared. But no one has done that. And I'm just going to read a couple of them. And you guys had so much insights, as if you guys perhaps even had education on this. And I'm just going to read one of the first ones here. And this person said, society is like the panopticon, but so it is like the range of control, like what Durkheim described. Normlessness is real, the person said. It's not just when society restructures it, it can happen. It's when you're at a different place than your setting and you feel lost, like you can't get out. So many people are describing society in different ways. And here's another person. How much freedom do we have is the real question. Or what is freedom? So in our discussion, people are starting to ask big questions like, what even is freedom? Do we have freedom? And how much freedom do we have in society? And this person says, Foucault has a very grim view of society. Is it this bad? Sometimes it is. You can't step out of place. So people are feeling the control of society. And then another person says, the more I think about my life and lifespan in society, the more I see the idea of being surveilled. And so these are the type of responses that people are having to discussing the panopticon. And then we have one person here who talks about a different social theorist. And I'll just read you what they said. I support other social scientists on the issues such as Talcott Parsons, who was a structural functionalist. And structural functionalism, it's hard to explain all of that on such a short video right now, but that is more of a theory that rather than Foucault and Durkheim, who were, and even Bentham there, who are very, they're very critical of society. Talcott Parsons was talking more about how, like, a day-to-day view of society, and talking about how we need to have some order in order for things to be functioning. And this person says, okay, so Talcott Parsons, who was a structural functionalist who viewed societal control as more voluntary and agreed to. And that is, I believe, somewhat true with what Talcott Parsons said. Okay, so I'm just going to get into the third question. And it says, with Durkheim's theory of suicide and different levels of society's restrictiveness, which one do you find most striking as where you think society is today? Anomic suicide, where the individual feels they are in a state of normlessness, or fatalistic suicide, where society is so restrictive that one is at a dead end? If you have a different point of view, please share here. And again, with sharing your answers, you always have a choice to say, don't, I'm writing this, and don't share this in the video. And I can ensure that, but I didn't have that with this group, and we only had 6 people, so hopefully in future we have more. But let's see what people said. Someone said normlessness would be the worst for me because I believe norms help society to function. And then we had other people here, and this one says, there's a certain deep pain of normlessness, and after watching the video and thinking about it, it is this state of society now that is moving so fast. I find myself wanting the happy times of the past, and this digital era is a source of tremendous pain. So people are feeling cut off from each other, and this is a digital era, and like that it is still fairly new. So let's just scroll down here and let's kind of see like how many said normlessness. So I've got 1 normlessness, 2 normlessness, I'll just count the normlessness, 3 normlessness, and I believe that's about 4. And 4, and then we had, let's see what people said about the opposite. Okay, and here's one person, and they said dead end would be the worst, which would be anomic suicide. With normlessness, the time you have, you can reshape things. When life gets to a dead end, it would be like no air to breathe. So people are talking about feeling too confined by society, and other people are talking about that they don't want to be caught in a state of chaos. So very interesting discussion. And we'll see our last question before the last little poll that I had at the end. And it says, after looking at these theories of society, what is your point of view? And let's just see what people are saying. One person describes society as being surveilled normlessness. That's an interesting point of view. Another person says, I see how society controls much of our daily lives, but I see the good parts of social norms and a society that functions, because if people didn't agree to take part in society, who would agree to take care of other people when they are sick or build and repair roads? There is something we can get out of society if we give, but it restrains many aspects of our lives. So some of you had a much more optimistic point of view of society. And perhaps maybe you see some hope of changing society, maybe even perhaps to changing it to be a little bit less surveilled, but it doesn't really seem like it's going in that direction. We're actually becoming more surveilled. And then let's see, some people mentioned poverty and the aspect of money. And they said society is order, but society leaves people behind who can't make money for it. And then some people are talking about normlessness again, saying it comes back to me, but normlessness stands out for this digital age. It's changing too fast, and I find I'm nostalgic. So that's very interesting. And let's just see what our last question. So for future discussions and actually just kind of like seeing where things are at, the last question here says, for our future discussions on society and surveillance, what areas do you see society right now exerting hyper surveillance on? So we have here kind of a four-way split. So we see 33% of people saying society is actually quite surveilling the poor, which we see that. Actually, it's surprising that only one person mentioned homeless individuals, because right now in Ontario, we're having strict laws about removing homeless encampments. People who are poor, people who aren't able to participate in society fully are actually quite surveilled. They're surveilled with all the paperwork that they have to give if that they need help from the government. They're surveilled with curfews and things like that if they're staying at a homeless shelter. They're surveilled if they have addictions and things. And I'm actually surprised more people didn't mention about that with mental health concerns, because I don't see, we had one person mention that. So I guess perhaps the poor, maybe many people, and we had a couple people say all of the above. So we have many groups in society that are hyper surveilled, and it's no wonder, being in a capitalist society, that the poor are actually quite surveilled. And that's kind of what people left things off with in our discussion on, are we truly free to love in society? And with this particular discussion, we talked a lot more for this side where we actually did the Google form, rather than in the video where we talked more about love and different issues such as incarceration. And this one, we talked more about what you guys thought of the theorists. So we'll just leave it there for now. And there's going to be more discussions coming out with my next song. And soon I'll be posting some stuff so you guys can know more about that. And hope everyone has a great weekend until we talk again. Maybe even this weekend. I hope you all take care. Okay.